pleasure to welcome Stephen Ellis into the program for the next wave, brought to you by UFC 289, coming up this Saturday, June 10th in Vancouver at the Rogers Arena and in your living room with the pay-per-view broadcast. Stephen, let's talk goalies in today's edition of the next wave, and I want to start at the top. Give me your top 3 netminders for the class of 2023.
Well, let's start off by there's no true number one goalie this year in the draft. There's no guy that stands out. There's no Spencer Knight. There's no guys like that. But the one that I'm keeping an eye on is Michael Harabai from Omaha, the USHL. Originally told me he'd be going back to the USHL next year, but it looks like he's actually going to go to Massachusetts and in the NCAA. And with 6'6", he's got incredible athleticism, perfect size. This is a guy you can really get excited about. And his stats aren't anything special, but his record when he faces 35 shots or more is pretty positive, and he tends to face a lot of shots to begin with. So, look at the numbers there. Nothing special, but he did a lot of the heavy lifting this year, and the fact that he's that big and he's got a couple of years in the NCAA is a good sign. And it's actually, there's a good thing where a lot of the goalies in this draft are going to be going to the NCAA to get some more experience, and that includes Trey Augustine. His numbers, he had a 31-2 record at all levels this year at all competition. Like, that's unbelievable. .926 save percentage. That's one of the best performances we've ever seen from a U.S. national development team goalie. And, he's not a big goalie by any means. He actually says that UC Saros is a big player that he looks up to. And that's kind of something that's become a trend where a lot of smaller goalies are saying, UC Saros, UC Saros, UC Saros. And that's a guy that a lot look up to. It used to be for a bit, it was like Jonathan Quick. But now, with the way that Saros is still very, grounded in his net. And you could kind of see that in Augustine, the way he plays. Another one there, Carson Bjarnason, a bit bigger, played for Canada at the U18 World Championships. Got to talk about how rough of a tournament that was for him. First game, he allows, I think it was like 5 goals on like 8 shots or something like that. It was a terrible start. Gets pulled. He ends up getting a cushion to end the tournament later on. But, he's someone that just, has kind of just everything there. He's got decent size. He's very fluid in the net, doesn't waste his movements around the net. He's kind of like a prototypical butterfly goalie. So, he's kind of the safe bet. Again, you look in the WHL, it's really hard to get good numbers. Defense sometimes is not mandatory in that league. But, I think that those 3 guys are the ones that you could look at and say, maybe 2 of them, maybe Rabai and Augustine are first-round picks, but all 3 of them are definitely got a shot there.
I'm going to flip back to a quick story here years ago, and it involves Rick DiPietro, who went first overall in the draft as a goaltender. Now, he was rated pretty highly going into that draft, but he had a massive playoff in the college ranks, and talking like a 3 OT game, and all of a sudden it was like, this guy's can't miss, right? One big game, couple big ones. He was trending way up, Steven. So is there anybody from this draft class, maybe not to that level, like the first overall or first round, but is there anyone who has really upped their value recently?
Well, the one for me, there's a few options here. I look at Adam Gayon as a guy that we've talked about a bunch this year, as someone who went to came out of Slovakia, was not drafted last year, goes out, it's kind of the 3rd goalie at the World Juniors to start, and we know kind of what happened from there. He ends up becoming one of the best goalies that we see in this entire draft. And, there's a couple questions there. Okay, are people overvaluing him because of the World Juniors? On one hand, yes. On another hand, I've talked to enough scouts and enough other people that follow prospects that say, he could be the real deal. But there's so many questions here still. The guy that last year was on no one's radar, this year shows up around Christmas time, and now everyone's looking at him. He played outstanding when he faced 35, 40 shots a game. It was just those quieter games that seemed like in the NAHL and the USHL he was not as great. But, watching him with that World Junior game, that looks like someone who's got NHL talent there. And, he's got size. He's 6'3". I've seen him listed somewhere at 6'4". But he's just, he's very calm, very relaxed in the net. And it's just someone that there are some scouts that think he's the best goalie in the draft. I disagree. And part of that is we just don't have enough of a book here on him. But he will be going to the NCAA. He is a guy that's going to be a bit more of a long-term project. But if he goes out there and looks really good against college players, who knows? I think there's a lot of potential there.
Last one I got for you, Stephen. We talked a little bit in the past few weeks about Dustin Wolf and how that was a late-round steal by the Flames. So give me this year's version of Dustin Wolf. Who's a guy who's going in the final couple of rounds who you think has some star potential?
Well, I've mentioned him before on this show, and it's Damian Clara from Italy. And to my understanding from draft records, it looks like there's been no uh, player actually born in Italy that's ever been drafted, and he's goalie would be a little more interesting there for sure. This is a guy that this year played as not the starter, but he shared the net with the Division 1A World Championship team for Italy, which was a team trying to make the top division. For a goalie that's not even drafted yet, who's only 18, that's pretty impressive. But he also played at the U18 level, U20 level. Like, this guy played everywhere in the Italian system this year. But he also looked good in his 2 starts in Hockey Allsvenskan, which is the second top league in Sweden, and he had great numbers in the U20 league on a team that faced a lot of shots. And then, he's 6'6", so that helps too. He was someone that was probably I'd say very tough to make this draft. But as the season went on, just seeing how he was doing against much stronger competition than I think a lot of other goalies faced over in Europe at that same age, and then him being with that size, he was pushed up to the 6th best NHL Central Scouting goalie among Europeans. And that's interesting because that is a total mixed bag every year. You're getting guys like of the top 5, a bunch of them are overage players. With Clara, he's one of the guys that come in as a fresh face and get size, athleticism. He's got everything going for him. So some scouts think he's a top 5 goalie. I'm thinking that could be the case in a couple of years.
Love the insight, as always, Steven. The next wave brought to you by UFC 289, headlined by Nunez versus Aldana. 6 Canadians on the card this weekend in Vancouver. You can watch it all on the pay-per-view broadcast. Steven, thanks for hopping on, man.
Thanks, guys.